Now, y'all look money hungry, and that's good.
Do I have your full attention?
Anybody tells you money's the root of all evil doesn't fucking have it.
What? You think the stock market's some great mystery beyond the realm of human understanding?
They say money can't buy happiness. Look at the fucking smile on my face. Ear to ear, baby.
Dr. Ng, welcome back to the show. Very glad to have you again.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And geez, you've done a lot of different improvements with the place since I was last here.
Yeah. I hope the wine list is to your liking. We got new furniture.
Fantastic.
To kick it off, last time we spoke on the show, it ran almost 2 hours, and we covered about an eighth of all the things that we wanted to cover. So that is why we're doing part 2. And one of the things we didn't really get into last time was your 13 laws of business. We really only covered the first one. I don't know if we'll have time to go over all of them today, but are there any specific laws that you'd really like to discuss?
Well, there's actually 13 of them in reality, but it's like, and I'm just trying to relate this to one of the. It is in the laws, and I'm just trying to remember which one it is. I have them in front of me, and I'm doing a quick scan here, but I think that one of the things that I really want to cover, and a lot of people tend to forget about, is people have there's two things. People have a price, and they have limitations. And it's in one. It's actually that sort of incorporates probably 2 or 3 of these laws. But basically, what I guess what I should start off with is saying is, let's talk about limitations of people. One of the things, or one of the phrases that I sort of adhere to or hang on to is never forgive, never forget. And people say, oh, that's harsh, or they sort of look at it on the surface like, love your neighbor, forgive and forget, and all that other stuff. But when I say never forgive, never forget, and there's all sorts of ways of saying it, but to me, it's I never forgive people for who they are, and I never forget their limitations. Okay, so a good example is a lot of people they go and they put unreal expectations on individuals, or they expect people to behave a certain way, but they really don't take into account the individual. So when the individual does something that really upsets them, whether it's, I don't know what it could possibly be off the top of my head, but we'll say that whether it's just something that they feel that they violated them in some way or another. But the whole thing is then they get the person to say, for whatever reason, just to make peace, they say, please forgive me, blah, blah, blah. And then what happens is, down the line, they may end up doing this over again and over again and over again. Now, when someone feels that someone has gone and betrayed their trust or done something that they need to apologize to them for, quite often what it is the person, first of all, has forgotten that person's limitations. That's how they operate. That's within their perception, right? And the whole thing is they put sort of a higher expectation on them to do something that's beyond their own capability. And in so doing, or trusting them too far, I guess would be another way of putting it, they set themselves up, the individual sets himself up for the fall. And then they expect the person to ask for forgiveness. But what are they asking for forgiveness for? They're asking for forgiveness for being themselves, for being their own beast. And it's kind of silly when you really think about it. So this goes back to the thing is that I don't forgive people for being what they are, but I don't forget their limitations. And when you do a business relationship or any type of relationship out there, even personal, you cannot forget a person that people do have limitations. And early on in the relationship, as you're starting to sort of build it, you're just going to start noticing things about this person. It's easy to have rose-colored glasses in a personal relationship, but really you sort of got to take them off and realize that, hey, this person is pretty crazy or off the wall, and is this something that I can sort of understand and not put unreasonable expectations into them to go beyond that. So I don't know if I've sort of explained that in a nutshell, but that's sort of some of the backstories and stuff to some of the 13 rules here, 13 rules of satanic business, because we talk about relationships and limitations of people.
Yeah, people are absolutely creatures of habit. And like you said, if they show themselves early on, if you're expecting them to change, then you're the one making the mistake. They're just doing what's in their nature. Don't expect them to do anything different.
It reminds me of the old fable where a man picks up an injured snake and heals it, brings it back to health, and after it's healed again, the snake bites the man. And as the man lay dying, he looks at the snake and says, "Why?" And the snake said, "You knew I was a snake when you picked me up."
Exactly. As a matter of fact, I use that actually in the book that is now out of print. I know everybody gets after me for that. I'm working on the second edition of the Millionaire Satanist, but it's sort of like one of those things that it's an ongoing project, and I'm hope when it gets out, I hope that everybody buys it, and I'll completely go and buy an island somewhere. But but seriously though, that's really what it is we tend to sort of look at things in the way that we want to see them, and it's a funny thing when it comes to personal relationships, male and female relationships, and it's funny that the woman always, well, I shouldn't say always, but women always think that they can change him, and the man always hopes that the woman will never change. But time is something else. So time usually goes by, and she doesn't change, and he hasn't changed, and they sort of duke it out. But that's not always, but that's sometimes the way it goes.
Hopefully people stop doing that after about 16.
That would be nice. But there's a lot of people going on 45 that haven't left 16, sadly.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to talk about, or I should mention, and I mentioned price. Everyone has a price, and people find that off-putting as well. But we always look at off. I love off-putting things. I thrive off them, and everybody has a price, and people don't realize that. Some people, they want fair market value for themselves, whereas other people undervalue themselves, and other people go beyond fair market value when it comes to what their value is. The price basically is what you have to put up with, or what you have to accept to be in a relationship, business or personal, with this individual. A good example is some people want to get into a relationship because they don't want to be alone, or they're looking for their soulmate, or in a business relationship they're looking for that partner that can do the sales while they can do sort of the other work, the behind the back shop work. Other people, on the other hand, it's a financial situation. Some, it's simply a trading of intimacy. Others, it's basically, everybody has a price. That's the bottom line. And even when you marry someone, right? I mean, the price is the in-laws. You have to put up with the in-laws. Or you have to put up with something there. So you have to ask yourself, is this a price I'm willing to pay, or is it a price that's overvalued? And I mean, that's really what you have to look at. And as long as you remember that everyone has a price, even the philanthropist that goes and donates gazillions of money, and people say, oh, how could they possibly want anything? Well, deep down inside, right, inside their being, they have an emotional need to feel that they're doing something, and that is their price, is that they get this paid back in that way, by having that need, that emotional thing sort of satisfied. So I mean, no one does anything without having some sort of price, and that's basically it. And in a mutually beneficial relationship, or a relationship, it has to be mutually beneficial, I should say. Because if both people do not benefit with their price, or what they're trying to get into it or get out of it, it's basically like robbery. Because like one person is being used, and the other person is not getting any, that person is not getting the benefit at all, and eventually you won't have the relationship. So even in a retail setting, I mean, if you just have a corner store, someone comes and buys a pack of gum, that is a mutually beneficial relationship. Guy's got the gum, you got the money, you buy the pack of gum. Both people benefit, even though it's a short-term one. But in longer-term ones, you still need that give and take.
Yeah, no, it's all about standards. Is what you're talking about, essentially. And I found personally that one of the biggest secrets to make your life better is to raise your fucking standards. Don't Be careful with what you put up with. Be careful with that salary, make sure that you're not only raising your standards now, but that you're always raising your standards. Otherwise, there's no way to improve in life.
That reminds me of a story my high school economics teacher told us. He crumbled up a piece of paper and he held it up and he said, "How much is this paper worth?" And people were saying a penny, half of a penny, and starting to come up with these deep, over thought out answers. And he finally just said, "It's worth what anyone is willing to pay for it. If someone's willing to pay $1 million for it, it's worth $1 million." I think that ties directly to making sure that as long as you're willing to pay the price and you're getting a value that's equal to it, then it's a good deal.
Exactly.
Yeah. That actually reminds me of there's also a native, a North American native story. And it's actually about a guy who this son asks his dad, what is my life worth? And it's in a similar vein. And he tells his father, gives him this rock and says, "Take this rock out and go to the market. And if someone asks you how much it is, just hold up 5 fingers." And he takes it to the market and they say, "How much is worth?" And he holds up 5 fingers. "Oh, $5. Then he comes home and he says, "How much did they tell you?" He said, $5. He said, "Well, take this to," he tells him to take it to like a fashionable district somewhere and go see somebody in the fashion district and show it to the fashion district. And when they ask you, just hold up 5 fingers as to how much it's worth. He holds up 5 fingers and basically the guy says, "Oh, I'll give you $50 for it." And this goes on and he goes to different places and he ends up going to a rock and mineral place. And he holds up 5 fingers, and they tell him that they'll give him $500,000, like $500,000 for it. And he goes back, and he's all can't understand this. And the moral of the story basically is your worth is where you place yourself in society or where you go. Mm-hmm. And I mean that's actually a pretty interesting thing because there's a lot of people out there that are undervaluing themselves. They're actually putting themselves in situations or surrounding themselves in an environment that they're not really getting what they're worth. And I'm not just speaking about jobs, but I'm speaking about also relationships and just general people, the world that they move in.
It applies to everything. It applies to relationships. It applies to friendships. It applies to, even your relationships with your family and your parents or your kids. You have to have standards, and you have to know, like you said, know your price, know what you're willing to put up with in other people.
Exactly. I mean, that's really what it is. And if take for instance, on the other hand, you feel that people are not valuing you or they're not putting up with you the way that you think that you should be put up with, if that makes sense, as opposed to wallow in it, get up, and move yourself to where you will be appreciated. Apply yourself to where you'll be happy and basically and prosper. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
And the other thing,
it kind of ties.
Go ahead. I
was going to say that kind of ties into something that we spoke about last time. A little update that I wanted to give. When last we spoke, I had ran into some struggles. Took on a second job at night, and that's a large part of why we haven't recorded in a while. But I did exactly that. I got up, I put myself in a different position, and am proud to say I've got a new job now. I'm not going to name the place, but it's income alone on a Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 is far more than what I was making at both places combined. So it just took some grinding, but I eventually did exactly that. I got up and I guess I brought the rock to a different place.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent.
And I mean, anybody, well, I probably shouldn't say anybody, that's a broad term, but most people can do that. I've known so many people working, $10, $15 an hour jobs where they can take those same skills and apply them somewhere else and instantly double their income. Easy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And it's this is one of the things they don't teach you in school, right? They really don't teach you, and this people roll their eyes when they hear this, but to me this boils down to sales. They don't teach you how to sell yourself, how to do sales.
That's
And
right.
they should really teach people how to sell. I mean, I applied for a sales job like years ago. I pretty much, I guess, when I was, fresh out of school and kind of sort of fresh out of school, out of the army, whatever. And people said, and so the guy said to me, "So you have any sales experience?" And I said, "Well," I said, I remember way back when I was in the cookie jar and I broke the cookie jar. And my mom asked me if it was me, and I said that was my first introduction to sales. And he looked at me like I was crazy. But I mean, really, what it is it's not selling like putting your foot in the door and doing crazy things that people associate with it. It's basically doing a lot of the lesser magic stuff, doing your research, and it's just being able to schmooze and provide information that's going to put people towards working towards your line of thinking and convincing people to do what you would like them to do. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. I'm oversimplifying it, but that's really what it is. But that scares a lot of people.
But they're all
Yeah.
doing it. Everybody is selling, some often poorly, but everybody is selling all the time.
Oh yeah, exactly. I love that. There's. I think was it the Wolf of Wall Street or something? The the guy says, sell me this pen."
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. Well, to me, I like the version where someone says, "Sell me this computer." So the guy says, "Okay." So he picks up the computer and starts walking out the door. The guy says, "Hey, what are you doing with my computer?" He says, "Oh no, it's my computer. You want to buy it?" To me, I just love it. I mean,
That's great.
that is.
Yeah.
There you go. There. So there's. It's not my idea. It was something else. It's something I came across. Some people say, "Geez, you come up with all these things." I said, no, they're not. If it's my quote or my thing, I'll put my name to it. But if it isn't, I try to give credit where credit's due. If I know, or if not, I don't put the name. But yeah, but I thought that was kind of interesting when it comes to sales. But really, it's sale. If sadly enough, I mean, we live in an age where people look at screens all the time. I mean, it's just the nature of society, and we don't fare very well in face-to-face communications. And this is, I think, in one way, this is a handicap for a lot of people that want to get out and move about and make change in this world. Or people that their heart's in the right place, but sadly their head's not in the right place. And we really need to go out there and have more FaceTime, and not FaceTime being like actually physical face-to-face stuff. We need to get more experience communicating with each other. I mean, when I see that we live in a society where people, you go and you say hello to someone, and it looks like you've gone and you've decided that you're going to castrate their dog on the hood of their car, the look they give you, or we get it in a situation where you pay someone a compliment and automatically they think that's a come on, that you want to take them to a hotel room or somewhere, take them home. And I think that boils down in a lot of cases because people don't know how to communicate properly, and they feel nervous about it, and they're very, I don't know, guarded. And I understand why people have to be guarded in this society, but it's pretty crazy, if you ask me.
I know millennials especially have I think everybody has a difficult time with interpersonal communication to some degree. You take most people and you put them up on a stage and they get nervous and have butterflies or whatnot. But this millennials really seem to have a problem with interpersonal communication because they, like you said, they spend so much time on the screen, typing out text and making posts on Facebook or Instagram, but when it comes to actual face-to-face communication, they're just not practiced at it. And the only way to get practiced at it is to get your ass out there and talk to people.
Yep.
Exactly. I mean, it's pretty bad when, people's social credibility is based on how many followers they have on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
But I hear people all the time speaking about that. But I mean, when you want to get ahead in life, how's that going to help you? Instagram's going to be history. I mean, at least as we know it, just like MySpace became history. You know, and where's the cred in that anymore? So I mean, you've got to start investing in yourself. You've got to start going out and go look, trying to get experiences. And I think this is something I spoke of on the other program, is that you have to really go out and, as opposed to buying stuff that you're going to have to replace next year, you know, or that kind of thing, or you get the latest and the greatest, it's better to go out and take that money and spend it on a vacation somewhere, go skydiving, buy a boat, you know, learn how to fly, do skydiving, do all this stuff, whatever it is you want to do.
Do something.
Or push yourself to the edge and do something. Take a course. And, you know, I have to laugh. I started an educational portal for people in Canada's north, because they don't get access to a lot of the educational programs that we have in the cities, right? I mean, in most cities, you know, you have 3 or 4 different universities and colleges you can choose from, whereas they don't. The only way of doing it is online. And plus, it's very expensive, I mean, to do things up there. So I put this portal up there, and the interesting thing that I found once again is, you know, there are people that will automatically take to this because they are screen savvy, but the whole idea is to get them exposed. To me, getting a mind exposed to even taking a course, and people say, well, is this one accredited, or is this done this, or is this done that? Depends on what you want to do. If you want to get into the profession, yeah, you better be sure this stuff's accredited, or you want to go and, you know, study at a mainline university. But, you know, there's nothing wrong, and there's no disrespect going out and taking something like a vocational or technical course, where, you know, you may not necessarily have all this academic stuff after your name, but geez, you know, you can probably go and fix a faucet or unclog a toilet in no time flat. And to me, that actually sometimes is 10 times more valuable than being able to cite Chaucer in your sleep or William Shakespeare. I'm not knocking that. I mean, it's, you know, that's literature is one of my interests as well. But, you know, I am all for, and I don't know. People look at me and say, "How can you say that? You got all this academic stuff." And I said, "Yeah, I got all this academic stuff, but you know what? I can still change my oil, change a tire. You know, I build stuff." And to me, that is 10 times more of the survival skill than being able to do super equations on a blackboard, if they still have blackboards these days.
Yeah. That reminds me of something I saw on Facebook today. It's funny where you can find gems of wisdom, but it said it costs nothing, or it takes no degrees to start your own business, but it usually takes a degree to work for someone who did.
Exactly. There you go.
Yeah. So if you can unclog the drain and do the pipe, and you can sell yourself a little bit better, there you go. You've already got what it takes. All you got to do is get out there.
The bottom line, the bottom line, it's for anybody out there who feels like they're not making enough money. If you want to make more money, you have to be able to add value to other people's lives. And if you're going to add value to anybody's lives, you have to have experience doing something. And I mean, the world is vast. The different types of experience you can get by putting yourself out there is unimaginable. But you got to put yourself out there, and you got to go learn shit. Go learn shit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, even if you have to unclog it, but that pays pretty good from what I hear. But really, yeah, that's it. I mean, I have the utmost respect for people that work with their hands. I made a comment in the previous in our previous show where I said, no, I decided I didn't want to do manual labor ever again when I got out of the Army, and I was fortunate that I positioned myself so I didn't. But at the same time, I'm not dumping on. Here we go. We're going somewhere with this stuff. No, I'm not trying to take away from anyone who makes an honest living with their hands, or is very good with their hand. Because to be honest with you, you know, I mean, they are worth every penny that they get. And people complain, oh, you know, I have to pay so much. But you know what? You know, would you go out and do this stuff? Would you go out and spend? You know, a lot of people wouldn't. A lot of people don't have the aptitude for it. You know, we can't all be, you know, the formula guys. But at the same time, the formula guys certainly can't go and you know, get down and dirty and strip down an engine, or those kinds of things. I mean, right? So this is the whole thing. I go back to this. We all have a place in society. Geez, where did that come from? We all have a place in this world, and it's our specialty. We just take care of what we have to do, and we contribute that way. And if you're starving, if you're having problems, whether it's finding a job or whether you're an artist and you're sadly you're a starving artist, and that's such a cliche, but it's sad and true for a lot of people. You really have to sort of, and it's easy for me to say, but you have to sort of focus and say, well, go through, what you can do that's really positive, the things make a list of the things you don't know, make a list of the things you're good at, make a list of the things you're not so good at. And just look at this and start to figure out where your limitations are and say, why aren't I good at this? Or why are these barriers in front of me? And try to break it down. A lot of people, we do stuff out of emotion, especially creative people. They run on emotion, and emotion is a beautiful thing, and creativity is a beautiful thing. But there's sometimes, I always say, reality sometimes really bites. There's pleasure and pain in reality. And what you really have to do sometimes is you have to go to the other side and say, okay, what is the block to this? And really sort of look at it and try to figure out what is standing in my way to do this or to get where I need to get.
Yeah, I like to look at the Saint George Carlin, because he's sainted. He said in a bit when he was talking about people are not all equal, and that's okay. And what he said was, Jose Canseco can't play the cello. Yo-Yo Ma can't hit the curveball. And look what they've both done while identifying their own skills.
Triggered.
They're both, there you go.
Exactly. I mean, that's really what it boils down to is it's, yeah. And this goes back to other things too. This goes back to something I always talk about. I talk about celebrities. And and people go and they pay millions of dollars. They pay these people millions of dollars, and yet someone who a nurse that perhaps is saving a life, or actually is in the chain of saving a life, right? Gets paid so little, and it sort of really it dumbfounds me in certain ways, that you can sign a deal for like 60 mil for like 3 years on a team to entertain people. And I'm not saying that they don't have to practice their craft and work at it, but 60 mil compared to someone that can save someone's life, I don't know. I tend to think it's a little bit lopsided there.
Oh, it's absolutely lopsided. But the reason why that baseball player is making $60 million is because there's 100 million people paying $20 a ticket and watching the games on TV, and so they're selling them advertising. It's MJ DeMarco called it the law of affection. The more people that you affect, the more money that you're going to make. And with a nurse, unfortunately, she at most she can affect 10 people a day, 20 people a day. But a baseball player, athlete like that is entertaining millions and millions of people, week in, week out. That's why they're making the big bucks. And it is. I'm not saying it's fair. Life's not fair. That's just how it works.
Yeah. Oh yeah, well, that's what I tell that's what I've been telling my daughter since she came out of the womb and discovered the world, is how life is not fair. And she looks at me and says, "Yeah, I know life is not fair." Yeah, the other thing that I find quite upsetting though, and this is just a personal little thing, is when it comes to major sports teams and things, it's really, it kind of reminds me of the old days of the king and the queen and all this other stuff, because a lot of people that would like to see these games, but they can't afford them. They're priced out of the ballpark, literally, for a lot of people. That sometimes they're fans, and it's once again, I'm not striving for saying, oh, let's make everything equal, because I realize there's inequality actually leads to independence in a lot of ways, in individuals. But on the other hand, I tend to think that, a lot of this stuff, why do they need to make $60 million? couldn't they take a hit and sort of make it a little bit more accessible to a larger market? I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here, but that's just me.
Yeah. Your comment on inequality reminded me of that short story, Harrison Bergeron by Kurt Vonnegut, where all the actors, in order to not sound or look better, some people were weighted down and some people had to wear masks. And then that one person towards the end had so many chains on him just to make him equal to everybody else. And then, of course, he broke free. But yeah, and we talk about teachers who have such a great job and yet they're underpaid, and all these other athletes and things like that. We can spend so much time complaining about the way it is, or the individual can get up and do something. Yep. You could teach at a higher level. You could tell the teaching program to take a hike, as long as you're willing to, not do what you want to do. But you've got options, and if sitting around complaining is the only one you're selecting, well, then you've already got everything you're going to get.
Exactly.
The other thing to remember is, for celebrities especially, for every person that's making $60 million, there's probably 5 million people making, $10,000 a year. So.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, it's the whole thing is I mean, I think we recognize, and it's the thing, we recognize that not everybody's equal, but at the same time our skill sets are not equal to everybody else either, and these are the things that we can leverage. We have assets in ourselves that we can use to lift ourselves up and rise above our circumstances, no matter what that may be. A lot of people, these past couple of weeks, actually, I've been running a program with, I would say, youth in crisis or underprivileged youth, and I've been actually teaching them some business skills, which is actually, it's been a while since actually I've taught such a young class. They're under 22-year-olds, and I don't know if anybody remembers the program was Welcome Back, Cotter.
Yep.
Dating myself, but yeah, it's kind of like those kind of kids, and there's all sorts of stories behind stories, and one of the kids actually finished my program. Two of the kids actually finished my program last week out of the 8 that remained after starting off with 12. Actually got jobs, and one was quite in tears because actually she was a kid. She was living in a shelter, and she got a job out of it. So I mean, it's sort of, to me, it takes me back, and I look at this and I say, what people can change their situation. They just need the tools, but they also have to be willing to recognize the tools and apply those tools.
Yeah, and get the tools if you don't have them. I mean, especially with information, it's at your fingertips, no matter. Well, again, I generalize, but for most people, it's at your fingertips.
Yeah, no, exactly. So in any case, so did you want to talk about some of the 13 rules, or?
Yeah, pick
okay. I mean, like,
well,
we're doing all sorts of stuff.
I've been reading them. I've been reading them as we've been going through this, and we've woven in and out of at least 7 or 8 of them. So to almost. If we had a visual, we could almost like have an icon at the bottom flashing on which one we just covered. So hopefully everybody listening to this can actually find these and read them.
Let's do some shameless promoting here. Dr.
Yeah.
Aaron, where can you find the 13 rules?
If you're within the sound of my voice, you can download the 13 Satanic Rules of Business at www.themillionairesatanist.com. That's www.themillionairesatanist.com, and get your free copy of the 13 Satanic Rules of Business. You'll actually have to subscribe. When you subscribe, you give up your email. However, let me assure people, number one, the email is that my list goes to me, no one else. I'm not going to sell it or post it on Facebook or anything. What happens is you will automatically get a download for the 13 Satanic Rules of Business, but as well as you will be on the mailing list to receive videos. I have a 13 part video series that each video deals with one satanic rule at a time. There's also worksheets that go with this. So you can do exercises to better understand the 13 rules and apply them in your life. Once you go through the 13 videos, which you'll get, probably roughly one every week, you'll end up getting some other videos from me with regards to content that is in the Millionaire Satanist book, as well as other ideas, other ways of looking at things that could actually help you further advance yourself. I go back to this. I wrote the Millionaire Satanist and the whole 13 rules and everything else because I got really tired of all this rah-rah sessions and all this BS that a lot of motivational people were dealing out. And I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them. I'll put it that way, actually. And on all the stupid ads that come up and say, just give me your credit card and we'll debit it for like $37.50 a month or whatever, and we'll put you in the fast track to our program to make tons of money. And the guy's standing probably in front of a leased Bentley that he doesn't even own, and one of these show homes that someone else owns. But rather than that, there's no credit card required. I will never ask you for money for this material. Number one. Number two, you will get, however, just because, we got to eat and everything else, you will get from time to time, but you won't be inundated with these things in the emails that will contain actual free content that you will use, the video and the worksheet, etc. You may also get some offers to look at some other things that you may have to, or that you would have to buy if you want them, but you're not under any obligation. And they come from me. And if I put an offer in there, it's vetted through me on behalf of someone else. But I'm certainly not going to sell your information to anyone. As a matter of fact, that's in the fine print. And when you subscribe or when you click on that link, it will actually ask you, are you sure you really want to subscribe? And you'll see two places where you can click to unsubscribe at any point in time.
There you go. Full disclosure. So when it happens, don't say we didn't warn you.
Yeah, exactly. I even have you can click the privacy policy for all my websites. I have, some people know, I operate probably like half a dozen websites at this point. Now, it used to be 30, but half a dozen websites. And you click on, the privacy policy is right out there, and it's telling you that I am not going to go and give your information to anyone. And, and especially in the European Union, I don't know if your program is listening to people over there, but on that side of the planet, yeah, they have strict laws. As they came out with some new laws about that. So I'm really working towards being compliant to them as well. So your secret's safe with me, guys. Yeah. So that's how you get the 13 law. Once again, at www.themillionairesatanist.com. I think that's enough plugging. And you'll get them. And actually, Bill Butler, and it's a fellow, actually did the artwork for the download that you're getting. He didn't originally do it with the idea that it was going to be down. He did it as a favor to me, and then we would distribute it amongst different groups. But that it looked so beautiful, and it's there. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
gotta give Bill the credit. He's a good guy.
He is a stand-up guy, and fantastic. Okay, so I
was going to say I'm staring at law number 8 here, and I definitely think we should touch on that one.
Okay. So basically 8 reads, your past successes and accolades are your past. Your future goals and aspirations do not yet exist and are of no use to you today. Your present is now and represents both opportunity and challenge to your very existence today and tomorrow. Choose what you do today wisely, for your survival depends upon it. With this, what a lot of people do is once they get to that pinnacle point in their career, or once they've achieved something, we'll say that, they got the business, they've rented the space, they got the key, and they've got customers coming in. They feel that, they've arrived, and they say, this is my past. And, the past is a good thing. A long time ago, a person was really judged on their past, especially when you go and apply for a job. People would look at this and say, what have you done? Right? But nowadays, a lot of places will say, well, what can you do for me? So when you apply for a job, it's, yeah, this is what I've done, but this is what I can do for you. This is how I can transfer what I've done and put it into today. I mean, so that's a little thing for people that are looking for a job or trying to get clients if you're a creative person. On the other hand, we tend to get lazy. I find that I have attended some very good schools, but I won't name drop, and I've lectured at some good schools. And the thing is, I meet people, alumni from these places, and they say, oh, yeah, well, I attended so-and-so, right? I attended Muckety Muck University. And then you say, okay, that's great. So what are you doing now? And there's a big silence. But everybody says, oh, he's a good guy. He attended Muckety Muck University. But basically what they're doing is they're holding this chap down because, he feels that he's already arrived. He's actually he's probably cut off his legs and he's trying to run a marathon. Because his perception is, oh, do you know who I am? Kind of thing in the back of his mind, right? Some people aren't that pompous. But see, this is the sad thing. So the stuff that you did in the past may have been a challenge and may have been noteworthy. And, but you can only go so far. You can only go so far selling the moose droppings by the color of the label on the jar.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's a Canadian thing, yeah? But that's really what it is. So if you need to move ahead, and hopefully you do, because if you don't move ahead, you're dead. And I'm not trying to be, a poet here.
It's true. If you're not growing, you're dying. You should always be pushing yourself.
Stagnation. Yeah. So really, to move ahead and to improve your financial picture, I mean, it's because really, let's face it, money being what it is, to improve your financial picture. Okay, so you have to really look at what you're doing today. You can say, what am I going to do today? When you go for a job interview, when you go see a client, when you go and you do anything where you have to get movement on something, you got to say, what am I doing today? This is what I did then. What am I going to do today? What am I going to do for you today? And basically, you don't have any, your dreams are not going to help you. Say, well, I'm going to go out and do this. No. What are you doing right now? Because what you're doing today is going to bring you closer to what you're going to do tomorrow, right? If, and people don't realize that. This is, it's just like building a house. You're laying the bedrock today. You're laying the foundation for that house that you're going to live in the future. Mm-hmm. And if we're not planning for this, boy, oh boy, you're going to get a reality sandwich. It's probably going to be a stale one, hit you right in the face. And this is the problem with retirement with a lot of people. You hear about a lot of people say, oh, I can't afford to retire. And it's not that, it's not that they can't afford to retire because of the system. I mean, the system is pretty bad. I mean, if you're waiting for Social Security, as you guys have in the States, you're up here, we have social insurance up here. It's called, if you're a Canada pension plan, if you're waiting for that stuff to kick in, man, you're going to be, and there's actually up here, I don't know if they have it down in the States, they have a calculator. You can actually put in your age and how long you worked and all that good stuff. And it calculates how much money you'd get if you retired at a certain age.
Yep.
And this is for the Canada pension. I guess it's your Social Security down there. And some people are gobsmacked. Like, they're shocked, Yeah. They say, geez, I'm going to be, the only way I'm going to make money is to run a B&B, and that B&B will be in my casket, Yeah,
exactly.
They can't afford to die. They can't even afford to live. So
what's sad?
Yeah.
I was going to say, what's sad about this entire concept is that, at least on paper, I mean, we can get into the way it really works, but at least on paper, this was started because people weren't saving enough for retirement in the first place, and the government stepped in to sort of make people do something. And that's what it boiled down to. Now, we can skip the whole, oh, they really just wanted to borrow it. But, on paper, it was created because people weren't saving enough, and they were having to work all the way up until the day they died. So they tried to find a way. Yeah. And the thing is, even now, they're still doing it.
Yeah, they're still not doing it. And it goes back to what Anton LaVey said in the Satanic Bible. You are your own redeemer. You have to save yourself. You have to, if you want your life to change or to be better, to get that, a higher income, to get a better relationship, to get a hotter girlfriend, whatever it is that you want out of life, you have to go do it. And you can't, like Dr. Ing said, there's a lot of people to say, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and days and weeks and months and years and decades go by and they don't do a fucking thing. Go do the thing. Do the thing every day and just grind at it, and eventually you will get what you wanted.
And another thing I like to tell people is if you actually get a career that you love, then even if you never do save enough money, at least you'll always be doing something you're enjoying. Like, I don't mind. I had a client who was a financial advisor. He was 80 years old and still selling as a financial advisor. Loved it.
Wow.
He had more than enough money to retire. He had, I was his banker. I knew exactly how much money he had. But he loved it. He goes, I can't imagine doing anything else.
It goes back to the table of the leg experience, do things for experience.
Exactly. And I mean, just to work off of number 8, is to go back to number 8 though, is the whole thing is well as, I mean, so what you do today is going to secure your future. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. And you don't have to, people say, oh, I'm going to do it, but then it's so time consuming. I don't have time. But what you have to do is really, even if you don't necessarily get into a situation overnight. You don't wake up all of a sudden and, oh, gee, this happened. It takes time. So for you to knock off this thing or take this off your to-do list, and you should have sort of like a to-do list or a task list
every day.
And then what I suggest is that you spend like an hour a day or so, working on whatever it is you have to do to change your situation. I just mentioned a to-do list and a task list. There's two differences between these two. A to-do list is sort of like you want to make a grocery list, or you might want to make a list of things you have to do when you're out, errands and stuff for the day. But a task list is a list that actually has step-by-step things you need to do, just like similar to the to-do list, but it actually has deadlines on it. It actually has other steps that you have to take to get this thing done, and it has a priority of a sequence of how these things get to be done. So it's much more exacting than a to-do list. And to me, that's one of the greatest time management tools. I use a task list daily in what I have to do, and you can use it for long-term projects as well as short-term ones. But
I think that segues perfectly into 13. By the way, not trying to jump ahead on the list.
No worries, yeah.
But yeah. I mean, just listening to what you're saying, it ties in 13. I love that one. If you want to go ahead and read it, and I'm sure the listeners will be able to pick up on how it's connected. But if you put everything you just said and connect it to really 12 and 13, but 13 particularly, I think that right there would be, the thesis of my advice to anybody.
Yeah, well, number 13 reads, when you're at your psychologically, intellectually, and physically weakest point, is the time you must work your plan diligently in ruthless ignorance of everything, anyone, and any emotion that would deter you. And that's really what it is that, you have to have stuff in writing, or you have to have a plan to fall back on. And it's not even to fall back on. This is sort of like your lighthouse. You're out in the ocean of all this stuff, and all this stuff is moving your boat, rocking your boat, and the waves are coming over, and it's probably all this bullshit really that you're encountering, all this external bullshit. But let's face it, we are not sticks or stones or worse than senseless things, as is written in one of those classic plays. But what we are is simply, we're emotional creatures sometimes, and sometimes our emotions overwhelm us, as do our circumstances. So while we're having that pause moment, we sometimes need to center ourselves, and having a plan, whether it's hopefully written, ideally written is the best, or a focus in our mind. We focus in that point, and we just work this plan. Just like we have to be sort of like Windows. I always use the Windows computer thing. What happens is no matter what's going on, whenever you turn on your laptop or your computer, you automatically get the little Windows logo, and it's doing its thing. You get the hourglass while it's thinking what it's doing, and you get the little tune, and it powers up. Doesn't matter what's going on. You could start that computer in a burning building and it would still go through that sequence. You could start it when people are getting murdered or yelled at or who knows what, or having a party. It'll still work. And this is what you've got to be like. You've got to be like that Windows computer. You basically, doesn't matter how you feel, doesn't matter, what's going on. You are the window. You got to run that program. And when you run the program, this gives you the laser focus. And when you come out of your depression or when you come out of the situation that you're in, you'll be still farther ahead for it and much better for it. Because if anything, just focusing on that even could divert your attention and actually put the pause button on your depression or on what's emotionally happening in your life. And I know it's easier. Once again, a lot of this stuff for a lot of people is easier said than done, because I know that every day, and I even mentioned this on the website. The website I set up, the Millionaire Satanist. Every day is a struggle for a lot of people, and I can really empathize with that. You can have all the money in the world, you can have money in the bank, and you still struggle in certain ways. And I'm not talking about, in that case, financial, obviously. But there's all sorts of emotional struggles. There's mental health issues. There's all sorts of other issues and physical disability issues that we all struggle with. And like they say, not all disabilities are physical. And the same thing, not all struggles are purely financial. And we have to recognize that we struggle every day. And having this plan, we can go back to this plan and use it as a focus point. If people are into meditation, especially they know what I'm talking about, it'll be a central point that you go through, and this helps you through it. But you basically, that's what you have to do. You have to just be persistent, have the guts of a canal horse, as they used to say, and just continue on and persevere.
So what would you say to those people who drew up their plans and they followed the steps and they got all the way through, and then the plan didn't work, it fell apart, it failed, whatever the case may be? And yeah, what would you say to people who are at that point? Okay.
When you drop the plan, it might be because there was a problem with the plan. See, take for instance, I could drop a plan that I want to go to the moon, but everybody's going to, people that really care about me would say that I'm completely crazy, right? And they would dissuade me against it. And I say, no, but I've been listening to these motivational tapes and the videos, and they say, I can do whatever I want to be. And, in school, right, it's hammered into me by the system, I can be whatever I want to be. And you know what? I don't have to say, you can tell where I'm going with this. I'm not necessarily going to say what it is, but you know what the situation is with that. So what happens is we are fed this stuff. And when we do planning, we have to sit down and there's a plan to doing planning. And, I know that a lot of times some people will plan purely on emotion. And there's nothing wrong with that. Emotion is a beautiful thing. It's what it's what separates us in some cases from other types of beings. But the thing is, we really have to sort of take the emotion out a little. Emotion is okay as the engine to drive us to do certain things in certain ways, but we really have to take that out and try to be real logical. And there's a lot of people that have problems being logical, and there's a lot of people that have trouble being emotional, and this is at both ends of the spectrum. So take for instance, your plan did not work. A lot of times people's plans don't work, in my experience, because they don't do their research. Number one, you have to fully research what you're doing, especially in a business venture, or if you decide you want to start a business, or even in looking for a job. Do your research. Like, is what I want to achieve possible? Can I be the president of Boeing or Coca-Cola? Do I have the qualifications? Do the research. What are the qualifications of the presidents of these companies? If it's a job, right? Do your qualifications mirror what these people in these previous positions have had? Hold. If it's getting your artwork out or your creative works out, look at other successful creative people and see, leverage. I don't say steal or anything like that, or try to plagiarize, but leverage what their experience is. Look at how they place themselves. Look at how they position themselves. you read autobiographies or read biographies of people that have done things that you wanted to do or that you want to do. Do your research the industry. But really, the most important thing is research. You just like Satanism requires study, taking control of your own life requires a hell of a lot of study as well.
Yeah,
and
it does.
That's part and part. People don't tell you this in school. You think that once you get the 3 R's, I don't even think they teach the 3 R's in school anymore. But once you get that little diploma saying that you put up with, depends on what country, or 12 or 13 years of schooling, you think you're ready. You think you think you're fly. You think you got it all, but you don't. They don't teach you this stuff. They don't teach you that, before you execute, you have to do a lot of research. And
here's the great thing about life is if you drop a plan and you work it and it just falls apart miserably, as long as there's still breath in your lungs, you can drop another plan.
Exactly.
Yep. And Dr. Ing, you said something I hear all the time, but then you paired it with something that I don't hear nearly enough. You started by saying they don't teach you this in school, and then we hear that all the time. We see those posts on Facebook. Oh, they don't teach you this. They don't teach me how to write a check. They don't teach you how to balance a checkbook. But then you said something else immediately about drawing up a plan. And I'm like, it always irks me when I hear the first part of what you said without hearing what you added, because it's the most important part. Once you become aware that you haven't been taught something, the onus to learn it is now on you. It's not on your teacher 15 years ago. If you were 30 years old and realized that you weren't taught how to write a balanced checkbook, well, the fact that you even mentioned it means it's up to you to learn it now. You can't go back in time. It's up to you.
Exactly. A lot of people, I mean, we're and I go back to the rule number 1, personal survival. And I talk about how I mentioned how we are born into a society where we think we need a benefactor. And I say we think we need, because we really don't. It's from cradle to grave. It's like, it's God, it's the government, it's this, it's that. It's the whole thing is what you really need to do is you really need to stand on your own 2 legs, do your research, draw up a plan to get to where you're going, draw the map, right? And it's not an easy thing for a lot of people. Sometimes it's also a painful experience because, not everybody has a benefit of a calm family life, a stable family life. And, people don't realize that every family has issues. There's no white picket fence kind of family out there. Mm-hmm. But, we are actually, sadly, these things leave marks on us, right? And these marks that are impression, give us our own insecurities, and we're afraid to go forward. And, fear is a good thing, but it's also detrimental in certain situations. And I mean, this is why we always want a benefactor, because, I can't make it up the hill, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. But, if you've come from a torn childhood or even a torn adulthood, and you're listening to this, and you're living and you're breathing, you got a roof over your head, and you got clothes, you have my respect, because, believe it or not, what's inside of you caused you to persist and continue on to where you are now. But this is only the beginning. You've got to take a few more steps. I mean, and you should take a few more steps, because, life is worth living, not worth putting on hold. Take a few more steps and go further. I mean, I encourage you to sit down and do a plan, but do some research. Spend some time figuring out what you want to do. And that's very important. Because I don't know everybody's specific situation, I can't speak to it, but generally, as I said, anyone who's come through hell in a roughed up childhood or a roughed up adulthood, I certainly respect, because, I've seen a lot of people go the other way with it as well in my career. And, sometimes, it's a real challenge to continue every day. But, the struggle is real. And you know what? Sometimes it just gets you mad enough that you're not going to let that son of a bitch win. You're just going to beat that struggle, And that's really what it's all about. It's going out and kicking ass. And I think that there's a lot of people, they have it within them, but you have to, like, as Rocky says, you have to want it bad enough. You have to, really let it eat at you bad enough that you're so mad at it. You're so frustrated. You have to go and get out there and do it. Right. And that's it.
Exactly.
I feel like that should be the end of the show, but there's more things I want to talk about. No, that was a great speech.
Well,
It was.
I don't mean to do speeches. I don't know. It just I'm just full of this stuff and it comes out. We'll just leave it at that.
That was great. One thing I really wanted to talk about is the fourth leg of the success table. Last time we only got to talk about the first three. We talked about money. We talked about experience. We talked about perception.
Right.
What's the fourth one?
Time.
Time.
Yeah. This is let's look at this all. Let's sort of review and as well. Like, let's start building this table here. So, typically what happens is people don't necessarily have all four of these. So we have a money leg, we have an experience leg, we have a perception leg, and we have a time leg. Okay. For a lot of people, when they have the money, they don't have the time. When they have the time, they don't have the money. Okay. But the interesting thing is like one of those wobbly bistro tables. You typically will always have experience, and you'll have your perception. Your experience, of course, is your past. Here we go with tying into the other thing about past accolades and things that you've done. But your life experiences, and we're not talking about the Gucci watch you bought or the Mickey Moto pearls that you have. We're actually talking about the experiences that you've been through, through school, through life, through work, through personal relationships. And this is very important because this actually this sort of puts the filters on your experience. This is what gives you the vision that you see when you look out at things and how you figure things out, right? So these are always with you. Based on these things, the experience, which is sort of narrowed down your perception of things, actually will determine what you spend your time on and what you spend your money on. Okay, so this is critical in that way if you really look at it. So to be successful, okay, you have to have the experience and perception. And if you don't have the money, you're going to use your time to get the money. If you don't have the money, right? Rather, if you have the money, you're going to sort of figure a way of leveraging it using your experience and perception to give you more time. And once you have these things, the time to do things or the time to choose not to do things, you pretty much have this success table. And the trick is once again, going to back what they don't teach you in school. They teach you to go and study stuff and get a job, right? Or have a little business, and that's it.
Produce.
Yeah. But they don't tell you about multiple streams of income. They don't teach you about passive income. They teach you about earned income. Earned income being you have a job or you own your own business where you earn your income, right? You're a plumber or something. But they don't teach you about passive income, where you write a book and if you're smart and savvy and you hook up with the right people and you promote it correctly, that book that you spent like 6 months writing might be able to put food on your table for the next 6 to 10 years. And this is basically where your experience and perception and your time spent doing that will yield you the money and you're successful while you're earning your income working your job as well. So I don't know if that sort of puts the table in perspective. I mean, ask me specific things, but that's how the table works.
Time is, without doubt, I believe, everybody's greatest asset. It is something that nobody knows how much of it they have, and we each have the same amount every day. Elon Musk has the exact same amount of time as you or I, and he's able, like you said, to leverage these other things, his experience, his money, his perception, to do incredible things, while, the guy working at Walmart doesn't. And it's, yeah, again, time is the greatest asset, but you need all four of them, like you said.
Yeah, well, here's let's look at the guy working at Walmart, the greeter. Maybe he's a greeter, okay? Because that's one of those jobs that's usually the entry level job, isn't it? Usually, but anyway, so if he's a greeter at Walmart, or the guy that pushes the buggies around from the car park into where they're supposed to be for people to get, and he's stuck in there for like 40 hours, well, say about 40 hours a week, yeah, and he's probably making maybe minimum. At best, maybe 5 points above minimum, 5% above minimum, right? And he wants to do something with his life. So he has this fixed income that he's got, and chances are it's probably not enough, but he's squeaking by. But what he could do if he wanted to change the situation, and if he works 8 hours a day, let's say he works 9 to 5 there. I mean, just for sake of argument, right?
Sure.
So we know he's got to go home and eat and all this other stuff. And maybe he's single. We'll say single or divorced or something. He doesn't have kids. Maybe he has a dog or a goldfish or something. I don't know.
So he's happy.
So when you really look at it, from 7 p.m. to about 2 a.m., he has free time. Right?
Yeah.
You really think about it, more or less. I
Absolutely.
mean, so I understand that you're going to come home and you're going to decompress. You're going to watch a little bit of television. Eat the crisps on the couch, whatever it is, or the chips. I remember from our last discussion. So you're gonna do that, and that's cool. And you're gonna have dinner, or shine his shoes, or who knows what. But if he takes at least 2 hours out of that time every night, somewhere along the line, or maybe even on the commute, maybe he hasn't got a car, but he's got one of these smartphones. Everybody's got a smartphone with a notepad feature. This dude, if he did some research, or lady, they could go and they could find what information people are looking for. They could find out what people search on Google, and do a little bit of research, even do research using Google, and go to local library. I know libraries, what are they? And end up writing an ebook about 48 pages. So what you do is you write about 48 pages of this ebook, and it doesn't have to be in the Queen's English. I know, because you guys are American. It doesn't have to be in the President's English.
Please don't.
But understandable, right? Grade 6 English is perfect. You don't have to be a sophomore at an Ivy League school or something. But anyway, so what happens is you write this book, 48 pages, not less than 48 pages, because it's to me that becomes a pamphlet. And you publish it as an ebook. And there's all sorts of publishing platforms out there. There's Amazon, there's CreateSpace, there's all sorts of ones, Lulu. Everybody's doing it. You upload this, and what the heck, you're on social media anyway, so you market it to your friends and stuff. And before you know it, you could very well end up in a situation where you've got something that's giving you residual income while you're working that job. And what's to say that you don't decide that, hey, maybe I'm going to start doing that a few more times with other subjects. And now you're building up multiple streams of income. It is not I'm giving it very simple for you, but that's how you do it. You can change if you're listening out there and you're one of these people that's in this 40-hour week job, close to minimum wage, no benefits, you get sick, well, you don't get paid. Get yourself out of there, And if you're an artist, you have all sorts of possibilities. If you paint, if you draw, you can actually, if you write poetry, whatever it is, get out there, do something so that you can get that stuff out there and have that as your multiple streams of income. This is the stuff they don't teach you in school, but let me tell you, this is how you elevate yourself out of there. It really is. And I say this sincerely. I have done this many times, and, with technology, it's a heck of a lot easier. You don't have to lug printed books on a dolly along the street because you don't have a car to transport them. The early days. So yeah, I'm just telling you, you can do it, and so don't say you don't have time. I should say this because I said I don't have time with my other projects. That's how do I legitimize it, why the second edition hasn't come out. But for you who's working at Walmart or the C shift at McDonald's or whatever it is, or the gas station, 7 to 2 p.m., 7 p.m. to 2 a.m., you got some time. You can certainly take a couple hours or an hour out of there and do something. and do it for you. This is what you're doing today. Forget about what you did in the past. This is what you're doing today to secure your future tomorrow. And what you do today is going to bring you to where you want to be tomorrow.
And everybody has excuses. I have, there's kids, there's the oven exploded. Everybody has things that go on in their daily life that they have to deal with. And it goes back to wanting it bad enough. If you want it, you'll figure it out. You'll make the time. You get up 2 hours early. You go to bed 2 hours late, or 4 hours late, or 4 hours early, or whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
There's a million different ways you can find not to do something. You just need to find one to do it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. I mean, the same thing is even you talked about the oven explode. The oven explodes. You know what? There's an opportunity right there. These are, you could sit and you could sort of say to yourself, how many people have been in this position where the oven's exploded? Why did it explode? Research it. See if this is information you can sell to people. See if you can do a YouTube video and get people to, and sell some sort of merch. Maybe, this is the way my mind thinks. Go out and put a damn web page up about exploding ovens. And get some affiliate links in there and get yet another passive stream of income. There's so many things that you can do out there to get yourself elevated, to get yourself beyond what you're making right now. I'm not going to say stuff's going to happen overnight. You're not going to have once you write this thing or build this thing, they're not all going to be there the next morning, 9 a.m., and you have to quit your day job. It's going to take time, just like it took you a while to go out and get into situations that you may be in, just like it took you a while to get into debt, right? It's going to take you a while to get out of it.
Absolutely.
But trust me, it's there. Everything is temporal in this life, sadly, but it's also a good thing on the other side of the coin. So you know what?
And at least you're breathing.
Gusto.
At least you're breathing. No matter where you are, at least you're breathing. Exactly.
And this is the kind of stuff like talking about these ideas that I'm presenting through my program, through the website, the Millionaire Satanist. And this is the Millionaire Satanist mentality. And it's basically questioning even, the Satanist being the adversary of all things. It's questioning not just what people are presenting to you, but it's also questioning yourself. It's checking yourself. It's questioning yourself every day. Am I doing something that's going to further my cause, or am I just spinning my wheels? Am I just, really literally, am I just wasting my time on this? You have to check. You have to check yourself. I talk to a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people that are Satanists and people that say that they are Satanists, but they don't check themselves. They want to check everybody else because, oh yeah, Satan, you Satanist, you got to question everything, and they think everything excludes them. See, but you got to start with yourself. If you are not questioning yourself, you have no authority. You have no legitimacy in questioning someone else. If you are not checking yourself, you have no legitimacy in checking other people or checking what else is out there, because unless your shit is together, you're going to be sliding all over the place at your own peril.
Well
you
said.
really are.
Yep.
Well said.
Yeah, that's it. That's my little soapbox on checking oneself. But
there we go.
Dr. Ng, we've been going for an hour, 15 minutes now. I think it's about time to end this show.
Can I throw in a couple things?
Absolutely.
Just a few things. One of the things that was mentioned to me was that people want to know the stuff that I read, other than the good book, and we all know the good book we're talking about, the black one.
Yes.
With the okay. Other than the good book, and I just want to mention a few books, and the reason I want to mention them is because it depends on what stage of life you're at or where your life is. These aren't necessary for everybody, but. But they're not. I say they're satanic in principle, but you be the judge. But to me, these are books that actually got me thinking about a lot of things. When it comes to business, there's a book called The One Thing by Gary Keller, and I recommend that. It helps you focus. It gives you ideas on how to focus on things in your life, and it's an easy read. It's called The One Thing by Gary Keller. Another book is called Black Box Thinking by Matthew Said. Black box thinking is interesting in that it takes a different approach. Everybody says, oh, let's look at our victories, let's build on all this. Black box thinking actually helps you look at things that where you've made mistakes, helps you learn from mistakes and from errors that have been made. It's a very good book. So that's another one. One that is rather controversial that I put out there, but it is a legitimate book. One called Lies My Teacher Told Me by James Lowen. Lies My Teacher Told Me. And what it is actually a history book, but it actually is a history book that includes information, history, that a lot of the editors in these school history textbooks they edit out because it paints a terrible picture. It actually paints how low we as humans can be when it comes to treating of others and political agendas. It mostly focuses, and once again, it's just because it is an American book, it mostly focuses on American history, but I think that everybody should read it because it's not just, it's all over the world. It's not just, but they give examples of different things with regards to American history. And I really think it's worthwhile reading. You may agree with some of the stuff, you may not. The facts are there. It's written by actually a history professor. So, and it's, endorsed by a lot of people, actually, even New York Times, made the New York Times list. So Lies My Teacher Told Me. Another book that I think is a useful business tool, if in a practical sense, is called The Mind Map book by Tony Buzan. I think it was re-released in 2018. It's called Mind Map Mastery. And mind mapping is basically a quick way of taking notes. So if you have to take notes and you're not a good note taker, or mind maps are really cool. I suggest you look into them. When it comes to philosophical books, beyond the good book and things, is one of the books that really changed my life. And it's sort of a pseudo Buddhist book, but it's really interesting. It doesn't preach Buddhism at you, but it's called Shambhala, The Sacred Path of the Warrior. Highly recommended. Shambhala, The Sacred Path of the Warrior. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. Those are my picks. If anybody wants to do some independent reading, you can get these for free at the library. Just borrow them and take a look. It's well worth it.
Well,
Sounds awesome.
Know what I'm reading this month.
Yeah. I read a book every week, so there you go.
So do I. It's
there you go.
The only way to go.
Yep.
Dr. Ing, thank you very, very much for coming on the show again. And knocking it out of the park again with lots and lots and lots of valuable information for our listeners.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.